You know, this last time I went through this ordeal with my foot, I usually don't like to talk about myself because I know there's people that's a lot worse than I am. But this last ordeal that I went with my foot, when they sent me up there to the hospital to, thought they was going to have to amputate or whatever it was. But you, when they told me that they wasn't going to have to do it, that all they was going to do was just doctor it, with antibiotic, the infection hadn't got into the bones and all this type of stuff, they want to do it. So a night or two before that they was going to let me come home, the nurse, the foot doctor that was on call that night, she come in and she said, they call it debriding it, they took and kind of the old cells and the old skin and stuff like that. This was still, it and the bottom of my foot both was such a real fresh wound. And they said, what we're going to do, we're going to give you some stuff, a shot, you know what I'm talking about, give you a shot to numb what's around it. Well, I've had them shots in different places, but I'd never had a shot like that in my foot. Church, when I finally got them shots done, I had a whole new appreciation for what Jesus Christ done for me. Now I can imagine the spikes that they used, the nails that they used in his foot. Mine was just a little needle. It was about that long, but it was just a little needle. But I'd never in my life had pain like I felt right. In fact, I had so much pain the first time I'd ever done it in my life. When she finally got done, I almost passed out. And that was just from one or two little sticks. But I can imagine laying and being hung to a cross and his weight coming down on him with the ropes and everything, and with the weight coming down on his hands and on his feet. I can imagine what agony he was going through with. And I can imagine what it would be like. That wasn't nothing. What I went through wasn't nothing to what he was doing. But it wasn't just them 3 nails. I love that song John sung. It was that love for us that kept him there. It was the one, I love him so much, I don't want to see him die and go to hell. I want them dying for him. I'm giving them a reason now why that they should be saved. So that's what I'll have that testimony. I know to a certain extent what Jesus felt when he was nailed to that cross. And it like I say, it gave me a whole new light of the pain and the agony. He done that for me. He done it for Lonnie and William and Randy and Debbie and everybody. He done that for everybody, that he could do that. When you think about something, you've heard it said so many millions of times, he paid a debt he didn't owe. He done all that stuff, but because of that love that he done that. He just didn't want to be friendly. I can go in, you hear sometimes on Walmart where people will go in and buy out a person's, layaway at Christmas or something like that, pay for their, that's a neighborly thing to do. But when you give your life for them, when you go through that suffering that he went just so you would be saved, I hope that really gets in your soul. I hope it gets into your mind. I hope it gets into your thinking what he actually and truly done for you on the cross. And when you do, I hope it's you just never stop thanking him. You shouldn't do it anyway, but you should never stop thanking him for what he went through. Amen. What he went through. Please keep that in mind. I've been thinking about that ever since it happened. But to understand what it feels like, if you want to do it, let a nurse put a shot in your arm or put a shot in your hand. You see, to me that's mostly the most tenderest part, and everything's so close to the skin that you feel it all. There's no muscles much there. There's few, but this is what we need to understand. No, he done that for you. He done that for you. And I'll repeat it. He done that for you. You take it just exactly like it says, literally. He done that for you. And that's what we need to understand. We couldn't thank him enough every day for what he's doing. Go to Philippians chapter 2 for me, please, real quick. Well, I mean, you don't have to be real quick, but might tear a page or something. But turn to Philippians chapter 2. We've been studying, you know, I'm hoping to be able to do the whole month of January, which is not too much longer, being ready for a new year. Now, I know we're almost done with January, but to understand that we've still got the rest of the year to go, and we've got some things going on now. The Lord told us and talked to us the other weekend, it's done been mentioned about having a revival. I mentioned that we need to understand that through the year that we have, we need to start making plans for a revival. We need to start making plans of how we're going to do in the year 2022. So what I want us to do tonight, I'm going to talk to you. When you're making plans, there's decisions that has to be made. You just can't say, well, I plan to have a revival in May or June, and then just stop there and say, we're going to have a revival in May and June. You got to plan for it. And then there's questions that's got to be asked. Well, who, you know, is the preacher? Who's this? Who's that? What's going on? But tonight I'm going to talk about for just a few minutes. We're going to study about what ifs. What ifs. You'll understand it here in a minute. We're going to have we want to have a revival in May or June or April and May. What if? What if we're not here? Amen. What if one of us is dead? What if one of us is going on in a situation that we won't be here? The church might burn. Anything. We'll be sick. And that's what we need to understand and know tonight. God tells us to make plans. If we didn't make plans, we would absolutely just sit down and draw up and say, I'm just not going to do nothing. I'm just not going to do a thing. I'm just going to absolutely just sit there because I'm absolutely afraid to go outside. We have people like that. We have people that says, I'm afraid to go outside. This COVID thing has got people scared to death. I know it's real. I know what's coming around. But it's the exploitation of what's going on that's scaring people to death. And that's what we need to understand. But as we make plans, even for the whole year, I want you to listen. Now I'm going to tell you something. We just do it. God is telling us. I want us to do more than talk about having a revival in April or May. We need to make plans. We talked about having revival. I love what revival is. Revival is when it's just about down as far as it goes, and then you raise up. We talk about, Dad, sometimes about the fact that when we talk about a church dying or a church that is dead, they need revival. Well, the Spirit told me, said, there's a difference in revival and resurrection. A church that is dead needs to be resurrected. A revival, they're still kicking a little bit. They're still trying to do a little bit, but they're being strengthened back up. They're being brought back up. We need to have the Spirit of God moving in this church. We need to have loving each other. We do that, but we need more and more every day because as my message is talking about tonight, we really don't know what the future holds. I'm telling you what, this is what's going on. I like it. Dad's mentioned something here the other day. Brandon Wednesday night mentioned something the other day, and it was all joining together when he said we don't know what the future holds. We do not know what the future holds. And when I was already reading this because we was here, not here to understand people don't know what's going to happen. We need to think about the future. And the future is closer than you think. Stop and think for it. What is the future? It's from now till then. Listen, I thought about this. The future is the next minute. Amen. The future is that we don't really talk about, we're talking about a year from now, we're talking about what's going to happen 6 months from now. But listen, the way the world is going now, you don't know from one minute to the next what's going to happen. Right. Amen. You don't know if you're going to get sick. You don't know if a parent is going to get sick. You don't know. I thought so many times. We remember several, going up and down 80, going from town to house. Me, Gary, anybody and I'm talking about my house. I'm talking about my household. It's many hundreds and thousands of times, Sam, that we have went from Columbia to home. Whether we was working, whether we was coming from church, whatever we was doing. We traveled 80. But you never know when you're going up that same road. You think you know every bump. You've traveled the road so much that you think you know, and you're assuming that you're going to make it there. Yep. Don't assume anything. Amen. Don't go in this year that we're having assuming that we're going to make it to April or May for a revival. Everybody's making plans, I know that. I don't think there's anybody sometime or another, and it may be a long time off, but you're still making plans where you're going on vacation. You're making plans what we're going to get them for their birthday, what we're going to get them for their anniversary. We're making plans. You're assuming that you're going to make it there. You're assuming you're going to make it. You're assuming that you're going to wake up the next morning. You know how you know that? You'll set an alarm clock. You'll set an alarm clock to wake you up. You think you're going to be alive in the morning. And that's what people is absolutely doing today. They're assuming that they're going to have their plans met. They're going to, and nobody's going to get sick. I hope sometimes you need to just think about this stuff. And God has told us that He has got everything. This is why I'm telling you, when we come up and face, I wrote down here, I really and truly thank and praise God that He don't give me these information. Amen. Just suppose that God told you, and you knew it without a doubt, that Tuesday morning next week, you was going to die. What would you do? You knew it was going to happen. I mean, you had no shadow of a doubt that God has told you you're going to die Tuesday. What would happen? You'd lose every Of course, a lot of people, the preacher sometimes has made the mention and the thing about it, what they would do if they found out they was going to die, they'd live like the devil from up to that day. And then they try to get right. But what if you knew you were sick? You know what I think would happen? We would try to absolutely do something about that and not let God have any glory out of it. They're doing that now. Mechanical hearts. All these things are trying to do something for somebody to die. And that's what we have to understand and know, church. The fact is, we do not know what's going to happen in the future. I say about going up 80. We hear it every time going in the news where somebody had been on that road for several years and then they just fall off asleep or they hit something and it kills them. If you knew that, Jesus knew what He was fixing to go through with when He was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was God. He knew exactly what was going to happen. He was going to go through with. What would you do if you knew what you was going to go through next week? You might have a wreck. It might not kill you, but you might go through a lot of suffering. We assumed at the 4th of July, we assumed that Becky would be here for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. It didn't happen. That we assumed that. We done this. And that's what we've got to do. Live every day that what you do, you don't know what's going on, but you put your faith and trust in God to be there when it happens. You go through that and you understand this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to do, and when these things take place, you put your faith and trust in Him. Amen. You put your faith and trust in Him and what He says is going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen to your family. You don't know when you're going to die. We asked ourselves sometimes, why does God keep this away from us? He loves us. He has mercy upon us. like I said, if you knew you was going to die next week, or if you was going to be sick next week, you're going to work, you meet somebody, and the spirit of the devil is up on him, and he's got the spirit of suicide on you. You hear it all the time. How that they'll just drive across the lane just because they're wanting to commit suicide. That involves you. You don't know when that's going to happen. Now, I'm not going to scare you, I hope, because God tells us to make plans. I'm telling you this so you'll absolutely put your faith and trust in Him. That He'll protect you. And when it comes up and you get sick, if some of your family gets sick, or if there's a death, then you don't have to ask why. You'll just say, hey, God's got it under control. He had His reason. He had His thoughts. He had what it takes and what to do. And that's what we got to do. But church, you got to put your faith and trust in Him. You got to depend on Him. You know, you sit there at the desk and you think about some scenarios about that. Some people don't know anything about a motor. You don't know nothing about it. You wouldn't know how many commercials have you ever seen. The car breaks down and you got a man or a woman standing with the hood raised just looking at it. Don't know what to do, you just looking at it. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the church. What we're talking about this year. We're looking at that world. We're looking at that year coming up. We don't know nothing about what's going on with it. We don't know that if it's the oil, they'll look. I've seen people don't know the first thing about a car, but they'll examine it just like they know it like the back of their hand. You ask them what's wrong with it? I don't know. What's going on in this world today? What's going on in the year coming up? I don't know. I have no idea. But I need to find somebody that does. That's when you call on Jesus. That's when you call on God. When you call on God, He's already been there, Lonnie. He knows what's already there. He already knows what's going on. So why get somebody that knows how to work on it? And when you come up on a problem, He knows how to fix it. And when you see this and you do this, then you understand what it is. Now, I know it's short, but still yet I hope it's to the point enough to know from now on when you pray, say, God, give me the courage, give me the thing, give me the plan, give me the prayer, that when I start out in the morning, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Now, there ain't none of you knew that. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's happened between now and when you get home. That's why we had to put it in all in God's hands. Amen. If there is a wreck, if He does that, make sure He's got it under control so you won't have to ask why did that happen. He said, why? And that's what we do. Like I said this morning, you realize and know. One day, I like the song that William sung. One day we're going to understand all this better by and by. And we're going to do that, then we can ask these questions. We can ask, why did I have a wreck? I just need to prove something to you. I need to prove that you did have your faith and trust in me. I need to prove that you was confident that I could take care of you. Faith is the fast and the greatest thing that a Christian can have. If you don't have faith, you don't have really nothing. And you got to determine to have that faith. Yeah. You just can't just go to the refrigerator. You just can't go to a book and say, well, I'm going to go today. I'll get me out a little faith out of the package and put it in my pocket. You don't do that. You have got to determine that every day, every minute, that you've got Him. I've got to put my faith and trust in Him. I can't do it in the car. I can't do it in the police. I can't do it. I have to do it for God. And He will protect you. You want protection? That's the way to do it. You go on and do your daily life. God tells us to make plans. God tells us to go on and do it. But don't do them plans. Don't make these decisions without Him first. Because He's the one that's guiding you. He's the one that's leading you in this. You do these plans, but let Him proofread them. Let him say, well, we need to take this out. You know, I heard this today. Let him take this out and put his part in. And then your plans will work. You know, your plans will work. But how many times you heard the preacher say, if you want to make God laugh, just tell him what you're planning. Yeah. You've heard that saying. And that's what we need to do. Put everything, any plan you have, make sure he he didn't say it like this, but it was just, but make sure he proofreads it. Make sure he puts in his part so it all will work together. So we still got another day or two before we start. But please, when you be determined in your mind, when you get up in the morning, when you're traveling or whatever you're doing, just before you start, God, you lead me. Don't let me make a decision that will be wrong. Put it all in there. I want to be in your will. I want to do what you say do. And when this happens, it'll all go good. Listen, there can't be no other way. When God's in it, God's taking care of it, and as you say, there's not many times that what we say and what we decide and what we do is the right thing. But it's always right with God. It's always right with God. He's got it under control. And that's what I thank God every day that he don't tell me everything. Yeah. Why? Because if he told me everything, then I really truly believe we'd be trying to change it. We'd be trying to change it. We get to the place that, you know, if I'm going to die, I'm going to do something, I'm going to go. And the Bible says, I believe it's in the book of Ephesians, where he says, these things is done by God. We don't do it by works lest men should boast. I think that's what would happen, because it happens so much today, where he gets to the place, they're leaving God out of everything, that, whether it's an experiment, whether it's anything. God already knew that. God already knew that the COVID was coming. God already knew the virus was going to be here. But still and yet, we're giving these people, oh, they're the ones that's doing it, the medicine people, they're the one that's doing it. God's got it under control. That's right. Please give the roses where they're supposed to go. Please give the one the thanks that's supposed to get the thanks. And he'll protect you and he'll take care of you. But try not to do it on your own. Let God help you in every way you can. God bless you.